Judiciary Committee this Thursday morning, January 29th. We're going to turn to a drive-by of H540, which is a bill that is in corrections and institutions. It's an act relating to recommendations of the post-adjudication reparative program working group. And we're going to have our first walkthrough from our new legislative council. So excited to have you here and telling us about this bill.
So excited to be here. So we're on H540, still the bill as introduced. Corrections did not have any suggested amendments.
And identify yourself for the record as well.
Thank you. I think I'm supposed to remember to do. Hillary Chutter Ames for Office of Legislative Counsel.
Thank you.
This bill makes a few changes that were specific statutory language recommendations from the post-adjudication reparative program working group. So 2024, Act 180, legislature made a number of changes related to restorative justice approaches, created a pre-charge diversion program, and then essentially told this working group to make some changes to streamline and make uniform how post-adjudication diversion worked. Representative Dolan, fair assessment of Act 180?
Yeah.
Great. So the working group was chaired by Chief Judge Zone. There was a DOC representative and then several representatives from the different community justice centers and community-based restorative justice groups. They met several times over the course of the year, submitted 2 interim reports, and their final report in December suggested several specific statutory changes, and that's exactly what this bill implements. So if the committee is interested at any point, there is a 4-page, concise, delightful final report from that working group that really lays this out with a couple sentences of explanation about why they made those changes. I'll try to touch on that in this brief walkthrough, but that's the first place to check if you have some other questions. So section 1, prior to Act 180, there were kind of 2 main places where the restorative justice program was mentioned, and that's in Title 13 in Crimes and Criminal Procedure, because being referred to a post-adjudication reparative program is a sentence. So that's what section 1 is doing, is making some recommended changes to where the sentencing provisions reference the restorative justice program. And then the second place, which is will be the other 2 sections of the bill, are in Title 28. So because DOC is doing a lot of work related to referral and operation of the program, the probation sections in Title 28 are the other places to kind of make changes. So in terms of like where we are in the statutes, sentencing in Title 13, and then probation in Title 28. So section 1, we're on page 1, line 12. This section is talking about sentencing alternatives, and it basically lists factors a court has to consider in deciding whether to order what kind of sentence, and then it lists the possible sentences. So the bill, now we're turning to page 2. The bill does not list all of the options. It lists 1, 2, and then you see the lovely 3 asterisks to indicate that there are some more possible sentencing options. But the changes here to subdivision 2, so lines 2 through 11, are really making some changes so that this subdivision looks like 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which just have kind of a short reference to the option for the sentence, and they don't have a ton of language about what the sentence means. But don't worry, all this language is not gone. You'll see it has been instead moved to a new section that kind of puts in one place everything you need to know about the restorative justice program. So on line 2, you'll see the recommendation was to change the word board to program to be more consistent with how this is referred to across statutes. And then lines 3 through 11 is removing language about referral and which cases can be referred. But all of that language we'll actually see in section 3. So we'll talk about it more there. Any initial questions about section 1?
Clear, thank you.
We aim for clear, won't always get there. We'll do our best. Moving on to section 2. So that's the only change, section 1, that's the only change in Title 13. So that's the one place where the sentencing provisions reference being sentenced to the restorative justice program, making really just kind of those changes for consistency. Now we're in Title 28. So these are several sections about the restorative justice program. Section 2 is making one change to 28 VSA 910. First, we're on line 16 on page 2. It's making clear by adding a sentence or on line 16, it's making clear that referral to a restorative justice program can be a sentence in and of itself, or if you are sentenced to probation, one of the conditions of the sentence of probation can be participating in a restorative justice program. So we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next page. If anyone is not immediately clear to everyone exactly what that means, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But that's the change that's just clarifying existing law that being required to participate in a program can either be a sentence in and of itself or can be a condition of probation.
So this also kind of it connects up to the 13 VSA, the Title 13. You know, in Title 13, we're saying this can be a sentence.
Yeah.
And we're clarifying also when we get to the Title 28, yeah, this can be a sentence. So it's kind of
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And in fact, in Title 13, this is in the asterisk language that's not there, but there's a second section that says, and just to be clear, referral to the board can be a sentence or it can be a condition of probation or probation sentence. So we say it in a lot of places to make it really clear for everyone that those are two options. But we'll say it most clearly in section 3 that we'll get to in a second. So the one other main change in that section 2 is making is that under current law, being required to participate in a restorative justice program can be a sentence or condition of a sentence of probation, or can be something ordered for civil contempt of a child support order under 15 VSA 603. So section 2 would remove the language that would allow referral to a community reparative program for civil contempt of a child support order. So the working group gave 2 explanations for this recommendation. They said, 1, we've never seen this, and 2, this doesn't look like the other kinds of things we are referring to a restorative justice program after adjudication because it's not a criminal violation. If you have more questions about that reasoning, I think you'll hear from Chief Judge Zone, and he or other members of the working group could provide further explanation about that suggested change.
Go ahead.
Just ask a question about on line 19.
Mm-hmm.
We're keeping the word boards there, community reparative boards. Is that because program was just mentioned in line 18?
Yeah, so there is this part of Title 28 has a couple different sections, and it basically says in 910, there will be a program. The program will be carried out by boards.
Okay.
The next section then says the boards will do the following things. So I think Chief Judge Zone in testimony before corrections had said, you have the program, boards are under the program, they kind of carry it out. In future, there may be future places to kind of pay attention to how all of these things are referenced in statutes. But that at least for line 19 purposes.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions about section 2 before we go on to section 3, which is our big exciting new section? Great. So as I was just saying to Representative Arsenault, these sections in Title 28 say there is a restorative justice program. The next section says, and it shall be carried out by boards. The next section says, the boards shall do these things. This would add another section after those saying, and here is how you are referred to a program, and here are other things about how the program is going to work. This is kind of a one-stop shop for how the restorative justice program will operate. So we're on page 3, line 3, subdivision A or subsection A describes what cases are eligible for referral to the restorative justice program. So not all cases, you cannot sentence someone to participation in the restorative justice program for all cases. It has to be for either an offender who has pled guilty to a nonviolent felony, a nonviolent misdemeanor, or a misdemeanor that does not involve the subject areas prohibited for referral to a community justice center. I'll talk more about that in a second. But subsection A, saying what cases are eligible, that's actually current law. If you flip back to page 2, lines 3 through 6, we used to say which cases were eligible for referral to the program in this big paragraph in sentencing. And instead we're saying, all right, we have this new section talking about the program. We're going to put it all here. And that's where we are spelling out, the bill would spell out which cases can be referred to the program. So it's not new, but it's putting it in this kind of one place to look for everything you need to know about the program.
But it's all current law.
Yes, subsection A and kind of a preview, subsection B too, are not new. They are just moving current law that was in Title 13 to Title 28, so that if you want to know how restorative justice programs work, you come and you look at this one section. You don't have to cross-reference. And we're not putting it in 2 different sections.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you just remind me why, so for post adjudication, can you remind me why it's pled guilty and not found guilty?
It's an interesting question. I'm not sure, but I'm happy to look into that and get back to you. Sounds like one of our future witnesses
Okay,
might know the
I'll-
answer. So I will look forward to hearing that
I'll
too.
ask it again.
Great. Any other questions about subsection A?
See any other questions?
All right. Subsection B. This section specifies, as we kind of mentioned before, that referral to the restorative justice program can happen even if the court does not place the offender on probation. So you can be sentenced to the program even if you're not put on probation. The sentence is go participate in the program. If you are sentenced to participate in the program on its own, not as a condition of probation, what happens if either the reparative board doesn't accept the case or the person does not complete the program? In those cases, the person has to return to court for further sentencing. And at that time, the court will provide a different sentence. Again, that's not new. If we look back on page 2, lines 6 through 11, that is what is spelled out in current law. Subsection C on lines 14 through 15 is kind of a corollary to that. It's saying that a court can sentence someone to the program on its own, not as a condition of probation, and also it can be a condition of probation. That's all kind of clarifying current law.
Oh, is that, okay, so it's current law, but it's clarified.
Yes, so it's not taken from, it's not like removed from Title 13, but this essentially mirrors language that remains in Title 13, just confirming, and does not change anything about how current law operates.
Okay.
Great. Any questions about that before we continue to move quickly through the rest of this?
No questions, great.
Right, great. Subsection D. Currently, there aren't factors spelled out anywhere, or there's nothing in current law that explains what a court should consider when deciding whether to sentence someone to participate in the restorative justice program. So the working group suggestion was that for uniformity purposes, providing some guidance about how courts should make the decision to refer someone to the program would be useful. So subsection D lays out that the court shall consider any relevant factors. So still very wide open for the court to consider anything it deems relevant, but it provides some factors that the court could consider, would be relevant. So whether there is an agreement between the parties for the referral, 2, the views of any victim of the offense, 3, the impact of the offense on the community, 4, the offender's willingness to participate in the program, 5, the offender's capacity to meaningfully participate in the program, and 6, whether there are any orders of protection in effect or previously in effect between the offender and any victim. Any questions about that subsection? All right, our last 2 on page 4, lines 6 through 10.
Can I ask a quick question on that?
Yes.
So do we have those kind of factors elsewhere for, I mean, where did those come from? Just, it seems like I recall seeing these factors before when deciding whether to send something to diversion or preach. Is that, do we have similar factors in preach? Okay, got it. Can't answer my question.
Excellent. Always helpful when a member of the committee
That's a better.
step in for me.
Seen it.
Well, and knows better than I, so excellent.
Okay, thanks.
The last 2 subsections, E and F, are also about kind of uniformity across the state. So making sure that the way this program operates looks the same or as much the same as possible across the state. So subsection E is saying that there shall be standard forms. The court administrator is charged with creating them, but that would be used in all courts in the state. Standard forms for referring to the program. And subsection F is that there will also be standard procedural rules, and the Supreme Court may adopt them. We don't get to say Supreme Court shall do something, but we get to say these procedural rules, please go forth and make them uniform, if you so choose. Effective date, July 1st, 2026.
Excellent. All right. Any other questions for Hillary? I don't see any. So thank you very much. And we'll hear from Jeannie McLeod next. If you could identify yourself for the record and weigh in on from the perspective of a community justice center on this bill. Thank you for being available and for your flexibility.
Sure. My name is Jeannie McLeod, and I'm the director of the Barry Community Justice Center, and I was a part of this work group. And we appreciate the clarity and making reparative probation a priority for the more serious crimes, because community's always affected. Even if it's a simple DUI, people are out walking their dogs when people are driving around, and this is really a place for our community to have a voice. I will say we do not call them boards, and we haven't since about 2013. We call them panels. And I don't know if that's relevant, but it's they've always been called boards for many, many years, and that was why we wanted to put in program to try to move away from the word board.
All right, that makes sense.
Yep.
So
Can I ask a question
yeah,
about that?
yeah, go ahead.
Specifically?
Yes.
Hi, Jeannie, thanks for being here. So I know, for instance, things are going to change, but the Williston CJC, where I've been a volunteer, there's a board, like kind of an executive board, and then there are the panels who are
Yes.
doing the work and meeting with community members. Is it confusing in this, that to have, I'm really questioning the use of the term boards, and I know they used to be just called reparative boards, but it doesn't really, that language doesn't reflect current terminology in my experience. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say, and it was changed for a reason that I'm very, very vaguely recalling about what a board is and what a panel is, and the boards are open to the public and panels are not. And what happens in a restorative panel is not a public event. So that was why the language was changed all those years ago. But you know, it's hard to break a mold. We've always been, your reparative board was how it was born. But that was kind of why we used the word program. So I was a little surprised to see boards out here still, but and if the work is the work, and it's done by what we call a reparative panel, restorative justice panel.
Right, I guess, yeah, right. I would just wonder if there are still going to be boards under the new.
Yeah, that'd be great. So I think it's because there's two different titles that we're working in, and Title 28 board is referenced multiple times, and that is a corrections thing, like they would need to work on cleaning that up. When we did Act 180, that was in the diversion, and we have more authority to be able to clarify and make it clear.
It's the
So
county's title.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I certainly suggest that, and I would imagine that they've heard this down in corrections, but I can pass that along. That is a little confusing for us, but.
If I may, Jean, I think you would say, even though this includes the board language, this still clarifies a lot of the work from where it has. Like, this is a huge step forward, and there are tweaks that can still be made.
Absolutely, yes.
Right, okay. Any further comment on this, or do we have any other questions? Yeah, Tom.
I'm just curious, trying to figure out the best way to word it. Are restorative justice sentences open-ended? Can you be referred to restorative justice programs multiple times? Or is there a cap, or is there a place in this in which somebody might think it's not meaningful for this person anymore? That just concerns me sometimes.
Yeah, and that would be where the program itself would be like, wow, we've seen this person 3 times and we're not going to do that. We can bet a case and say no, and then it would go back to the court. If we feel a person had been through multiple processes and it was not being effective for them, the center has the ability to say it's inappropriate and send it back.
And so that's going to come directly from the court or some type of pretrial services or something like that. Is that how you're going to get the case?
That would be, you know, the coordinator of the program, and it would probably run it by the panel themselves at a meeting saying, look, Joe is coming back to us for his third time. And honestly, the court also looks at that too. And they're probably, if they understand they've been through a few times, may not send them again. Unless the crime was very different, unless the crime had a lot of people impacted, because we're also there to be the voice of the victim and give the victims a chance to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that ability of the coordinator and the program to say this case is not appropriate would take care of you know, repeat offenders who we feel it wasn't working for.
Thank you.
So this might not be a question that you can answer, and it's maybe slightly out. Well, it's not outside this bill. So I understand court diversion at the end. If it's successful, records can be expunged. We have a bill that would change that to sealing. If somebody is sentenced to restorative justice program, at the end of their sentence, at the end of either the probation or their term in the restorative process, what happens to the records in that instance? Are they expunged, or are they not deleted because it was as part of a sentence, not court diversion?
Correct. They're not expunged. There
Okay.
is that twist of, it's called reparative without probation, but even so, but they're on probation, and that's going to be also on their record. So both of them, I believe, we don't do reparative without probation much here, but they both still are on their record. But these
Okay.
are also more serious crimes than probably are going to the pre-charge diversion. So they probably should stay on their record.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions for Jeannie? Not seeing. Thank you so much again for being available.
Yes.
So we'll hear from Kim. So we'll postpone Kim again. Great. Thank you for being here, Kim. I would say thank you for your patience, but that'd be presumptuous of me. to say that you're patient, but,
No, as long as I'm joking, I'm actually not. Yes. If I stop joking, then you'll know.
Oh, okay, all right, fair enough.
Kim McManus, Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs. My testimony is very short on H540. As was explained by Legislative Council, none of these changes, none of the changes are changing existing law. They're just clarifying how it's stated and where it's stated. The only thing that is new are the factors. And I would just point out that in the report, the November report, the working group did note that there are no analogous provisions in current statutes to these factors. So they created these factors, but they said in there, like, they're not pulling it from somewhere else. I think the pre-charge diversion, there's different requests for like policies to be made about the factors, but there aren't actually factors in statute. So just wanted to note that. But the factors listed here from our department's perspective, as long as the department has the discretion and that is there, whether or not we agree or not to the referral, and that's one of the issues that could be discussed when this is brought up. Our department has no issue.
Okay,
It's 510.
you had a question.
I have two questions. I'll go in backwards order because the second question is about the factors, or one of the factors in particular, number 6, page 4, lines 4 and 5. I'm curious if, from, I don't know, the prosecution's perspective and certainly the court's perspective, if the existence of orders of protection might hinder the, moving, say, a domestic violence case to restorative justice.
If there's a protective order in place, very possibly, though I would think a domestic assault charge would likely fall outside of that because it would be considered violent, not a non-violent misdemeanor.
So it's eligible pre-charge, but not post-adjudication.
I think,
Yeah.
so we passed a law, forget how many years ago, like 3 years. You want to share?
That it could be considered
be
if they
considered
had a program and
in
then
an
there was an
MOU.
agreement and an MOU.
Yeah.
So there's very specific factors that would need to
Yeah.
be in order for a intimate partner violence case to be seen at a justice center.
Right. And I'm worried that I think that law was passed to try to address, the very real need for victims in these cases to feel a sense of justice that they don't tend to get from the criminal justice system. So I guess at this point, they'd already have gone through the criminal justice system, their post-adjudication.
And it's only that the court shall consider.
Yeah.
So it'd be looking at, do these
I'm-
folks want to come together?
Right, I wonder if like the views of any victim of the offense, if that would be enough to, if that would weigh, if a victim were to say, I would like, I need this person to be making a living and not in prison and whatever, can we go through I wonder if that would be enough to counter, but there you have and who knows what the orders of protection, what the stipulations would be and everything. I'm just trying to think, trying to make sure we're not working against our own efforts as a legislature, and aware of the very real challenges faced by victims of domestic violence in the criminal justice process, and wondering if we're just throwing up another.
No, I think I understand your concerns. I think by having these be factors that the court weighs, the victim's views are one factor. If there is an existing or was an existing protective order, we can look at that, see what the protective order, as you said, there's a real range there. It might be right that they can communicate, but the person can't be at their house, right? There's levels, and those can also be modified depending on where the criminal case is going. That protective order could be modified, and maybe that's being factored in as well. So I think the fact that there's not like a outright prohibition,
Right.
that if somebody has a protective order in place, you automatically can't go. It's just raising the awareness that that's another thing to just check and cross-check. Because often what will happen, and it's unintended, is the criminal case will finish, and sometimes the victim will conflate the protective order and the criminal case, even though they're completely separate, and think like, oh, that protective order is all done. And it's not, right? So it's just, I think listing it here is having it be an awareness for the court, and with the work group's reasoning that the idea of these factors is so that we're having more consistent outcomes as far as what cases are going into the program. I believe was the intention. Judge Zoney can most certainly talk more to that. But I think as having factors, and just the fact that a factor exists doesn't mean it's not outweighed by other factors.
Thank you. And then the first question that I'm asking second is on page 3, line 4. I was just wondering if you have thoughts on the use of the word pled guilty, who has pled guilty instead of who has been found guilty.
Yeah. I don't know, this is my assumption of it, but I don't know if it is because part of the restorative process is that somebody takes accountability for their actions. And so if you plead guilty, you're admitting to it. I don't know, that's my assumption in it, versus if you're found, you might not be willing to.
Yeah, it's an amenability measure.
Yeah.
Yes.
We
We also,
Like that, yeah,
I mean, we also mentioned that as a factor, vendors' willingness to participate in the program and capacity to meaningfully participate. Yeah, if it's intentional, that's great. But it doesn't, but then does it close the door to this as an option, folks who are found guilty?
The way it's written right now,
Yeah.
yes. And I would have to look at, that is the language that exists right now, so I'd have to look back at when that was written. I believe that was intentional to the point of that somebody has, yes.
Okay.
All right, no other questions. Thank you so much. All right, so we this afternoon we'll invite Zone A on this bill, and I think that we share jurisdiction, but corrections is taking this up. I'll ask folks at the end of that if there's anybody else we want to hear from, or if we're ready to take a straw poll on this. It sounds like it's largely moving things around in our statutes, but all right. So we also have Lisa Mylott at 1:00 comment on the latest revision of the animal cruelty bill. And there's a couple other things this afternoon, including a vote at 2:30. Can you tell? So do you want to give us where you were, since you were Stephen Brown did call you out on
He called me out. Good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you had left, but
I went to do the drive-by with government operations and military affairs on H 541, the voter interference with voters in elections bill. They had some interesting questions. I tried to represent our committee as best as I possibly could, but I'm sure I was found lacking. Attorney Devlin did his job, and they came out on a straw poll of 10-0-1.
in favor of that.
In favor.
So we have a scheduled vote on it at 2:30 this afternoon. And at 3:00, we have 3 individuals who are in the State House on Mental Health Awareness Day. I just asked them to address concerns related to the intersection of mental health and criminal justice. We'll see what they have to say. And if there's a little time slot in among all those things, I would like to get back to the voyeurism bill to just talk about what I understand are the 2 remaining issues that we